Hey, Jen.
Hi, Elle.
How's it going?
I am doing absolutely fantastic.
That's great
How are
because
you?
I'm doing much better now that we're sitting here, sitting down and filming the pod.
Yeah. Our
Let's-
pod date.
It is our pod date.
Mhm.
Oh, it's so romantic.
I love that for
I wish we were
us.
closer. That's so nice. We just touched hands.
Yeah.
For those who can't see, which is everybody. All right. So what are we talking about today there, Jen?
We are talking about work-life balance.
Balance?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Who does that?
Not me.
Also not me. I really struggle. But
Yeah, that's why this is a really, really good thing to talk about today because I feel like we always got to be working on it, always on our best behavior,
Yeah.
always trying to achieve the balance.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think you should hit us with a juicy, Lucy disclaimer.
Disclaimer to the disclaimer. Alex and I have been absolutely geeking off like for a really long time tonight.
Yeah.
Probably like the last 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're going to be a little giggly, or if we're going to sound a little funky, fresh, funny this
Yeah.
episode,
Things
here's your
will
disclaimer.
pretty much be funky fresh from here on out.
Always.
Yeah.
I always keep it funky fresh. So
Yeah, you do.
But disclaimer, as always, we're just two gals with two opinions. And sometimes what we talk about is fact-based. Sometimes it's more opinion. If your opinion doesn't necessarily align with ours, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever.
Yeah. Opinions are like, I'm just going to say it. Opinions are like assholes. We all have one.
That was so deep.
Yeah. That was actually, that was a previous passage that has been dropped down from generation to generation. I'm not the first to say that.
Wow.
Yeah. That's big.
That one's
Feel free to
hitting.
use that. Take it and run with it.
You can quote Alex.
Quote me
Yep.
and my ancestors.
Oh my God.
Alrighty. So that was a great disclaimer. I feel
Thank
the
you.
same way. I think, yes, this is just opinion based. We're just on here rattling things off, giving you our 2 cents on our experiences and how we would like to deal with things and how you can learn from our mistakes, hopefully.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I think that we should get started. Jen's going to get going here and she's going to shed a little light on work-life balance.
I'm gonna shine a little light.
Shine a little light, baby.
Okay. So in my opinion, having a good work-life balance is essential, right? It's the key to having a good work environment, waking up in the morning or whenever you go to work, going to your place of employment, whether it's at a school or a separate building that you have to drive to, or if it's in your house or apartment, getting in that good mindset to start things, get your day going, do the work, put in the hours. But also it's kind of the key to at-home success as well. It's certainly easier said than done.
Oh, yes.
And by no means am I a master at this. Especially being a creative person, it's really hard to just turn your brain off when you have those creative moments because they certainly don't always come at the 9 to 5 or whenever your work hour might be.
They almost exclusively don't. It's
I feel
almost
that.
like you sit down and you have your scheduled time to do the work and to have the creative ideas come to you and just complete brain fog. Nothing is coming to you. And then as soon as you close your laptop, it's like, oh,
Yeah,
have you ever thought about this? You should do that.
literally.
But then I don't know about you, but I am really bad at writing things down, which I think would help me a lot. So I just
Same.
let it keep repeating throughout the night
I feel that.
and let it stress me out until I get to my laptop in the morning when I forget it again.
It's a vicious cycle.
It is
Yeah.
vicious.
I love that for us. And especially going back to the whole like clock thing, I guess. Your body doesn't know when it's time to work, or I guess it does, but it also isn't just going to be like, okay, here's your 8.5 hours that you have to work, or however long that you're working, and here's all of the creative energy you need. That's just not how it works, quite frankly. So it's definitely a mental game that you kind of have to get into that mindset to be ready to work, but also in my case, like be creative. It's definitely a struggle sometimes to just get in that space, but you also need to recognize that the time that you spend outside of work also has a value. Like, just because we're in this age where you're supposed to have a job, and you do have a job and you spend a lot of your time at it, doesn't mean that that's the only purpose you have on the planet, right?
No, I would say almost the opposite.
No, exactly.
But I think that we've been trained to believe that work always comes first.
Yeah. And I say this a lot on this podcast, but especially in America, we have such a deeply instilled system. I don't know if instilled is even a word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have this system engraved in our heads that we're supposed to wake up in the morning, go to work, and then
be miserable and then come home and then hope you have enough energy to do the things that you want to do.
Right.
But the way it conditions us is that's rarely the case, because the way that the typical corporate American, typical businesses are ran, if you are not your own boss, it can be very hard, and it's very rare to find some place that fills your cup the same time as it empties it, because naturally when you're putting in your effort towards your job every day, you're going to leave feeling a little bit empty. But if you have a place that's really nice to work for and they treat you with respect and they respect that you have a life outside of work, then that's kind of best case scenario. But that's still, you still have to get home and practice the balance too.
Yeah. I can drop a situation if we want to have that.
Drippity drop it.
A real life experience. Oh my God, imagine that. They're
just opinions.
It's opinions, but this one is also fact based because it happened to me. Of all people, Jen fucking Kettner.
Is that your middle name?
Yeah. JFK. That was crazy.
Are you a Kennedy in the Call It podcast
Jackie
studio?
O. It's me. Hi.
You would make a great Jackie.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that.
Continue.
My story is from my first week of employment at my current position. And I got handed this, basically a redesign of a project. It was these sheets that are describing all the different majors and what have you at my place of employment. And they're like, just keep it within branding. Like, we want to see something fresh, come up with ideas. And when you tell me I have free reign, basically, I'm going to go buck wild, okay? So they gave this to me on a Friday, I believe. And I can't turn my creative brain off when I have the creative brain running. I, sat at home for 3 or 4 hours that night and just came up with concepts. And not, I didn't feel like I had to do that by any means, in no way,
but
shape,
you were
or
riding
form.
the creative juice train.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I go back to work Monday or whenever the next time I was working was. And I was like, I have all of these concepts. I'm so excited here. And I remember my boss being like, did you do this on the weekend? And I was like,
no.
Yeah, but I didn't feel like I had to do it. I had creative burst and I did.
Because that somehow changes what the reality of the situation. You're like, yeah, but it didn't feel like work.
Right, exactly. And my boss was like, don't do that. Never feel like you have to do that. Just I really enjoy working at my current place of employment because they are so you are working here right now, but on the weekend or when you go home, do not work. You're not getting paid extra to put in extra effort.
I love a boss who respects and helps you practice, leads by example. Take weekends for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you work 5 days a week and you have 2 days off, that's not a lot of time. Take the time off that you need, drop it at the door, and pick it back up on Monday.
Right. Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. I love that. And that's one of the many reasons why I love my current employer. But to get back to the topic of the day, you have to recognize that your time outside of work is valuable, not only to you, but to the people around you as well. And if there's no balance, both sides of the story are going to end up suffering, right? So you're going to suffer, your friends and family are going to suffer, but also the drive and the effort that it takes to wake up and go to work, or whenever you go to work again, that drive is going to diminish. And you not having that fine line or boundary set between work and your home life or whatever you want to call it is definitely going to deteriorate. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a word.
Yeah.
At some things in your life, I think. The main thing that I'm concerned with in my, I guess, how I deal with this is the people around me. I am afraid of not being able to dedicate time to people. I love being able to spend time with people, my friends, family, this podcast. Like, I have a lot of things that I need to put energy in. So it's especially important for me to figure out that line, which I feel like I'm doing a good job at now.
I
But
do too.
in the beginning, it was
But it's
so hard.
consistent practice,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
if you're not putting that at the forefront every day, you're just burning both ends of the candle at the same time.
Right.
And that is so unhealthy. And the thing is, sorry about that, everybody. I took an awkward pause because my phone went off. It was not on Do Not Disturb, and it completely made both Jen and I deaf in both ears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a little loud.
Startling,
Yeah.
a little bit.
I'm glad you guys can't hear it though.
Yeah, that is really nice.
Yeah.
So regardless, we're talking about burning both ends of the candle.
Right.
Back to you in the studio, Jen.
This is Jen Kettner reporting live. Yeah, again, so if there's no balance, both sides of the spectrum, whether it be me, my friends, my work life, my personal life, are going to suffer. And it's a matter of not being able to distinctly set that line between work and home life, okay? So being able to set that line is definitely what helps you maintain these friendships. Have the energy to want to go grab a coffee with a friend, take a drive to the lake after work, or whatever your happiness or however you spend your time outside of work may be. But I think specifically when I think about this, I'm thinking about parenting and also personal relationships. Obviously, I am not a mother or a parent by any means, no way, shape, or form. Let's put that out there in case you didn't know.
No fur babies, no nothing.
No, nothing.
Just herself.
Yep, just me. But I feel like when I think about work-life balance, that's especially what comes into my head. Being a parent or a guardian of somebody and not having that separation of work versus home life, you're definitely going to... Ooh, I heard...
We got a train. I didn't even know there were train tracks close.
I didn't either, but
Well, here we are.
that just made me lose my complete train of thought.
That derailed us.
Wow.
Wow.
You're so clever.
Play on words.
You're so beautiful and clever. I love it.
Thanks, Jen.
You're welcome. Specifically in parenting, I feel as though if you don't set that line, or you have a line but you cross over it, it's only going to affect whoever you're guarding, your child, your dog, you know. Neglect is a very strong word, but also you need to be able to draw that line and not neglect yourself,
Yeah.
but also the people you care for and take care of.
Very true. I feel like when the people that you're caring for, they start to express or to notice that you're not as present even when you're there because maybe you're just mentally still at work.
Yeah.
That's going to affect your relationship because they're going to start to see you differently or assume, oh, you never have time for me. It's all about work. It's about this. And what's that going to do for you? It's just going to put more strain on yourself, on your relationships. So just practice it better because it's not just about work. It's about everything else that comes from that. Everything.
Right.
That's why this podcast is so important, because even though Jen and I talk a lot about things that aren't necessarily work related, they still somehow tie back into it.
Absolutely.
Because it's our life, everything somehow intermingles with each other at some point.
I would agree completely. And you actually brought up one of my next points. So I think the big issue that comes out of a work-life balance is the statement, oh, I just simply don't have time, or sorry, but I don't have the time for blank. You know what I mean? In my notes, I wrote, sorry, wrong. And I actually, this is something that hits home to me very personally, and I'm very passionate about it. So the thing that gets me is it's not an argument of I don't have time to do X, Y, and Z. It is simply a time management question.
Yes.
Okay. So when people tell me, or if I hear somebody say, I don't have the time, I just simply don't have the time for X, Y, and Z, It actually really frustrates me because, in my opinion, you're not realizing that actually everyone is given the same amount of time in a day or whatever. Obviously, not in a lifetime, but everyone has 24 hours in a day, 60 seconds in a minute, 365 days in a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everyone is given the finite set of time, numerically speaking. You know what I mean? So it's frustrating to me when people don't take into consideration my time.
It's zero accountability.
Yeah.
It's not being able to admit that you're just not willing to put in the effort to make the time.
Right.
That's what a lot of it is. It's like, yeah, of course you don't have time because you're not putting in effort
Exactly.
to have the time.
Or it's a matter of you having different priorities, which is super cool. Everyone is allowed to prioritize whatever they want. If you want to have work as your first, that's totally cool.
But say that.
Exactly.
Don't disguise it as something else. It's really frustrating for somebody, like anybody in Jenna position, if we're talking to somebody and they're trying to tell you that they don't have time for something when we're willing to put in the effort and make the time and to kind of give that back to you. It's frustrating because we know it's an excuse.
Right.
You can feel that.
Yeah.
So you're almost like giving them the look like, come on now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we know what's going on here. Yeah,
what really
exactly.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that completely. And especially when you tell me, oh, I just don't have time. That makes me feel like, okay, well, I simply don't have time to sit around and wait for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I think that's where this kind of bridge, I guess, that you have to cross with a work-life balance is. If you don't have that bridge to get across, or that's like keeping you from getting across, it's just going to damage things in your life. And I feel that on a very personal level. We won't get into that. But it's very unfair to other parties involved. So I'm just thinking about like how you can better manage your time. And that directly ties into the whole work-life balance thing because that's what it is.
Yeah.
You have to find what you want to prioritize and find people who, I mean, they don't have to be identical, but that align with what you think as well.
Who almost like want to push you to prioritize and time manage better, being like, hey, I understand that you think that you don't have time. I maybe don't agree with you on that, but how can we kind of work together? Like, I care about you, you care about me on either type of relationship, whether that be the work or that be the personal.
Yeah.
Having somebody to kind of like set things straight with you and be like, hey, I'm willing to kind of sit here and work this through with you, but you got to be able to give me something.
Yeah.
Be able to kind of step back and see that what you're doing right now just isn't cutting it. It's not working for either party. And that's where relationships can get damaged, to whatever capacity that relationship is. So that's a really good point you bring up is I think work-life balance attacks a lot of stressors that people have.
Oh, God, yeah.
Relationships are probably one of the number one stressors besides work. Personal relationships affect work. Work affects personal relationships. If you're not working to solve those situations, it's just kind of a dead end.
So yeah, this is a huge stem from having that work-life balance, right? It's very important to chase after a career, do whatever the hell you want in life, but you also have to keep in mind that you were put on this earth for a multitude of purposes, right? You're not just supposed to wake up and go to work and hate your life and not connect with people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one of the big issues in finding work-life balance, at least in my opinion. If you don't set time aside for yourself and the people you value in your life, you're just going to burn those bridges and lose some people. And if you're cool with that, you can stay in the same place. If you're not cool with that, you have to find that balance, which is something that you got to work on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you can't expect the other person to kind of agree with where you're at because you could be in two different like scenarios.
Oh, yeah.
And that's fine.
Right.
But you kind of just need to come to an agreement, I guess.
I would agree. And especially when you can't find that work-life balance, this ties into a topic that we have discussed very recently. So I'm just going to speak my truth right now.
Speak it.
I think it's awesome to have priorities, but if you put like, for example, we'll go with 95% of your effort into work and you try and spread that extra 5% thin across a couple other facets in your life, you're just going to burn yourself out, which ironic. We talked about burnout a couple episodes ago, but it's a direct tie into this. If you don't find that healthy balance between working and whatever you got going on at home, you're just going to tire yourself out. You're not going to have the effort or energy to go to work and make your money, do whatever you need to do to survive. But yeah, burnout is huge when
Jen,
it comes to this.
I have a question for you.
Absolutely.
How would you recommend people to avoid burnout and find a work-life balance if they're working from home post-pandemic? Because I'm sure that threw a wrench in people's daily routines.
Oh, God,
if
yeah.
they had to reformat their work life and now they're at home. How would you recommend people kind of stay on top of things?
I mean, it's definitely going to be different for every situation because, for example, me, I live in a studio, okay? Some people might have a massive mansion or even like a multiple bedroom place, right? So having that into consideration, if you're able to have the space or have like a separate room where you go to work, I think that is especially important. For those who don't know, I'm in a hybrid position, so I'm in person 3 days a week and remote 2 times a week. So this is kind of new to me too, being in my studio apartment 2 days a week trying to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely don't have the space to create an extra room, but I have a little corner in my apartment that's dedicated to work. So I think especially having that separated area is certainly important.
It's almost like the physical balance of it. Now we're not even talking about like the hypothetical mental aspect of it. We're like, okay, physically, you need to have a balance between your spaces. You can't just be working on your bed or working on the couch all time. I mean, that's fine. I do it sometimes too, and I have a day at home. But it definitely, you can see the productivity go down because it's now the balance is being a little bit tipped on the scale where I'm like, ooh, I'm too comfortable. Maybe not my productivity is going way down, but I'm not as into it as I should be. I'm not as like zoned in.
Yeah, I get you.
Mm-hmm.
I also think if you're in a position that allows you to, or I mean, again, it depends on your job, but I think allowing yourself to take breaks when you really need it is especially important. For me, too, right? Okay, so I work 8 to 4:30 every day. And when I'm at home remote, sometimes it's hard to just sit there and get the work done for those hours because I'm thinking of so many different things that I could be doing. But it's important to be like, okay, I can take like 10 minutes here and then just add 10 more minutes on at the end of the day or wherever. You know what I mean? So allowing yourself to have a little bit more flexibility and not be like, okay, I need to sit down 8 to 4:30 and get shit done, which you do, but also it's okay if it goes out.
It's also not good for yourself to sit down for that long.
Yes.
And I think for productivity wise, for your physical health, just get up and take a couple of breaks, do a quick little walk around your studio apartment if that's what it takes. Get a snack, make sure you're eating and drinking water, like pretty minimal things that you can do to make sure that you're not pushing your boundaries with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would agree 100%. This one, I guess these don't really necessarily relate back to the pandemic, but some things that I do, or I wrote down to tell you guys, are set boundaries. Okay, so what we've been talking about this whole time. Again, you can allow some flexibility here and there. It doesn't need to be like, okay, I'm never going to think about work while I'm at home.
Good
you know what I mean?
luck.
Right, exactly.
Let's be real.
One of my coworkers and I were talking about this today. She messaged me on Teams and was like, I had a dream this weekend that like one of the things you designed changed the date. Is that true or am I just making this up? So it's impossible for you to not be thinking about this at home.
Because she's going to show up in your dreams now. Work haunts you in your dreams.
Literally. I think about that a lot. I'm a creative. We know this.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, okay, I'm thinking one time and specifically, I literally dreamed up how I should create a project one time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the design I went with. Like, I remembered it when I woke up, which is fucking crazy.
That's cool, though.
I know.
That you could remember that.
I just saw it for some reason.
You went brain computer and you just like transferred the idea.
I don't understand how that works. But let the record show that it is impossible for you to not be thinking about things just because you're not in your workspace.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yay.
You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, girl.
This goes back into, again, what I was just saying, but make sure to take the time off that you need and deserve.
You have PTO for a reason.
Literally.
I think in our burnout episode, we had talked about this, that you have PTO. Don't let a boss or employee or coworker or anybody else make you feel bad for taking that time off. That's what allows you to keep doing your job well.
Exactly.
It is there for a reason, whether you end up taking that for sick days. If you don't have separated sick days from your PTO, make sure that you're using, like, you don't even need to go anywhere. Just take PTO, do a staycation at home, or book a cabin 2 hours away. That's what I'm doing in 2 weeks. Like,
I love that for you.
That's just, those things are so necessary, and it's okay. Like, I think it's kind of scary to allow yourself, because you feel like you're letting somebody down or letting yourself down. It's like, girl, just relax.
They'll be fine.
Do it.
Exactly.
You're going to enjoy it. And then you're going to be like, wow, next time it's going to be so much easier to dedicate that time for myself.
Agreed. Yeah. I love that you are taking time to do things for yourself. That's awesome. But you just got to remind yourself that your only purpose isn't to just be at work and get shit done. I think it's great that we are in a society that tells you got to have a job and get shit done. Otherwise, quite frankly, shit would not get done.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
But it's important to recognize that you are also a human being, and you're allowed to connect with people. You're allowed to go make friends. You're allowed to go have a drink with your girls. You know what I'm saying? Like, you
go
gotta
get a
make
drink.
time.
Buy yourself a drink. Ooh, ooh. I'd flip-flopped.
See, I was thinking, buy you a drink. Ooh.
That's what I
I'ma
just
take
sang.
you home with me.
That's what I just sang.
I don't think that was the same song.
I switched the lyrics though.
Oh.
Buy yourself a drink.
Oh.
Wee. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're putting down.
Yeah.
Yeah. On that note,
We're like same wavelength, but blocks away from each other. Like, we're vibing the same, but not at all.
no. No. Oh, goodness gracious.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
That was nice. Little comedic relief.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I love about what we do. If we're gonna do something, it's be a little goofy.
I am Comic Sans.
You are Comic Sans.
And Alex is Papyrus, in case anyone wanted to know.
Jen thinks that, what did you say that it was?
I said you're Papyrus because you're refined and a little bit sexy, but also kind of wild, kind of goofy.
This is shocking to me. It's a big compliment, regardless that we're talking about Papyrus. Okay, for all the non-designers that are out there who aren't familiar with the names of fonts,
Papyrus is what's on the Avatar logo for that movie.
Yeah, okay? It is the title treatment. It's what the font that they used.
Yes.
It's horrendous in every other scenario except for Avatar. I literally don't use it anywhere else. Unless you're maybe in like biblical times or like pirate movies.
I'm sorry, that laugh was so loud, but I did not expect you to say biblical times.
It could be, I don't know. It looks a little aged, a little rough around the edges. But Jen's giving Comic Sans. Okay, she's thick with 3 C's. That's a millennial Gen Z crossover. Period. Yeah. And then it's also like playful. It's energetic. It's quirky.
She's goofy.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add on that?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Just let the record
Moving
show.
along.
Yeah. Please tell me what you have to say about this topic.
Okay, for sure. So when I was first looking at how we were going to start this and talk about it, I'm glad that you went first because it actually got my wheels turning. And a lot of why I'm in the place that I am today with this podcast, with the business that I started with my dad. My last job that I had, I said that I was kind of like in the event industry. That was one of the worst work-life balances I've ever had. And I've juggled a lot of things in college. I've tried a lot of different things. I've had a lot of different relationships that had high priority that I have struggled balancing in the past, but this was the absolute worst for me because I didn't have somebody like you did at your job who was kind of reminding me and showing me the way, like, this is how you properly take care of yourself while still managing to do your job successfully. When you have somebody, you get into a rhythm in a new job, and you really do look to the people who have been there, who are a little tenured to you, for guidance on how the dynamic of the office works. Because unfortunately, it is really tough when you see other people working late, working through their lunches, and you think that you need to do that. There isn't one person who doesn't at least consider it. Maybe you don't go through with it, but the thought crosses your mind like, well, should I be doing that too? So my old boss, she had told me, take lunches for yourself. Don't stay past 5. But she herself wouldn't do that. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, you need to lead by example. You are our leader of the office. So you can naturally see that, especially if you're working with her one-on-one on a project and she's just going to be the only one working on it, you're going to feel like a slacker. You're going to feel like a piece of shit. You're like, okay, so now I'm going home, but you're going to keep working on our project together? Right. Like, absolutely not. I'm going to stay with you. Preach. Exactly. Mm-hmm. But also, like, that's your partner. You're not going to let them down, even if they're okay with it. I mean, you and I talk about this with the podcast all the time, like how we divvy up responsibilities. And that's something that I need to practice more too with. And that's something that we talk about quite frequently is, it's ours. So it's important that we share the same level, So if you were working late, I would want to work late too, kind of a thing. Yeah, just out of respect. So with that, because I didn't really see that in either of the positions that were there, everybody was working late. And I think that I had a good balance at first, but then it just started to eat away at me. And then I was putting in more overtime, not getting compensated for it because I was paid salary. While I was working there, when I got hired, I was told that I would have X amount of PTO and X amount of sick days, which was like 12 days of PTO and 10 days of sick days separate from each other within 3 weeks of working there. Because it was a nonprofit, they actually had reformatted with the board, who are a bunch of people who make 6 figures and they're volunteering to do these positions. And they said, you know what? I think that's too much. I think we should put it down to 2 weeks paid vacation and sick days. There were people who had worked there for 5 years who were stripped of everything.
Wow.
And got the same as everybody else. Yeah. So with that being said, that also kind of like switched my mentality towards a kind of feeling that I was already in a bind, looking at everybody else, comparing myself, making sure that I was at the same, rate that they were. But now I was like, wow, now I feel like physically stuck, because if I get to my wit's end and I physically need to take time off, I don't feel comfortable doing it because I don't have the time. Like, you take 5 days off, that is half your PTO. And I actually had a trip that I had to take at the beginning of that year that I had already put in PTO requests for, which took up half of it in the first week of the year.
That's wild.
And I think you only accrued like 6 hours a month.
Wow.
Which isn't even a full work day.
No.
It just seems like why? That just seems so shady to me.
I would agree.
So because of that, I found myself within the 8 months that I worked there, which is such a short amount of, so that's how like bad space to be in. I was so irritable. I found little to no joy in things outside of work. Even with work, I really struggled, like enjoying conversations with my coworkers, trying to get to know them better. I found very little things exciting. I just simply was on autopilot the whole time. And I knew that I needed a change, but the fact that it wouldn't have been easy kept me from making that change for that whole 8 months, because I wasn't happy from the very first month that I started. I knew that it wasn't going to get any better. And even as we hit deadlines, it didn't. So I moved eventually. I started a new career. I'm now a small business owner, so I do have the luxury of making my own business hours. There is a work-life balance with that, and I'll kind of touch on that in a little bit. But I didn't have any friends coming here, so I kind of had a fresh palette. But with that, it's almost like there was too much space now, where the scenarios were so different that I kind of had to learn a whole new type of work-life balance. So before I move on to my next point, what I want to say is, when you are a small business owner, I know that it is a luxury. It's a privilege that I have to be able to kind of pick and choose where I work that day, when my meetings are, if I don't feel like working a day because I'm not feeling good or I'm feeling sick or something pops up. I've had a lot of friends get married in the last 2 years where I've had to take off a week at a time to go travel to their weddings. I have the flexibility to do that. However, the thing that they say about small business owners is you traded your 9-to-5 job in so you can work 24/7.
And I have seen that.
Yes. So again, there's balance needed in every facet of your life, and you just got to search for it. It's not going to come easily, but the first step is being aware that you do need to find that and then working towards it. So I'm actively doing that right now. I don't want to sit here on a pedestal being like, oh, I figured it out. This is the formula to
Oh my God.
I know, I'm sorry. This is the formula to figuring it all out. I do not have it figured out, but we're working on it. And that's exciting enough to me.
It's okay to not have it figured out.
It's okay.
Life is for.
Not to be okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you follow it up with a live, laugh, love?
Oh, I'm living, laughing, and I'm loving. I'm loving it. Like McDonald's? Okay,
I'm
moving
never
on.
speaking to you ever again. Earlier, okay, before you get
I've
into
lost
your
next
friend.
point.
I can't handle this bitch. In a loving way. We had this conversation this weekend.
We agreed to call each other bitch in a respectful, loving way.
Yeah.
It's been nice to kind of get that out of the way.
It has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were we going to say?
I'm going to tell them the story from earlier. I got here, and sometimes before we film, Alex and I get food. And today, she did it without me. Okay?
Okay, I do have to say a disclaimer in there though. The days that I work from 190 degree coffee shop here in Duluth, Minnesota in Lincoln Park, it is the best place. We love you guys.
Yes.
If you ever listen to this podcast, shout out to you
We
because
fucking love
you
you.
fuel us. You make us feel good.
Literally. If you want to sponsor us.
Cool. Let us know. But when I'm there, I tend to eat one croissant within a 6-hour period.
I know.
So that's why I had to, because my boyfriend was actually getting mad at me today because I'm really bad
Fair.
at eating. So that's the only reason.
I know.
And I sent him a picture of proof that I was
love
eating.
that for you.
Yeah.
Let the record show I was not actually mad, but I was like, oh, you have food. I'm going to go get food quick. And she was like, okay, come back. And as I'm walking out the door, I was like, yeah, I'll be back. And then I go, I probably won't be back. And we had a moment, we were just staring at each other like, you're going to come back, right?
Right?
No, I'm not. And then
So I harassed her via text message.
literally, she's like, I'm holding your slippers hostage. And I was like, well, you can keep them, bitch. Anyway, I don't remember why I'm bringing this up, but
It's important it's context.
Yeah.
It's always about context.
always about context. And you taught me that.
Totally is. For all designers or anybody out there, if you ever need to explain something to a boss or to anybody, basically reasonings behind the choices you made and anything, it's for context.
It's for context.
And then you leave it at that.
Yeah.
Works perfect. Life in general is really hard to balance. And I don't think that it's just work and life. It's kind of like work and then life is broken down to all these little subcategories.
Yeah.
So relationships, your personal well-being and needs, hobbies, personal goals, ambitions, that's outside of your professional life. In my opinion, I wake up and I live, or I work to live, right?
Right.
I don't live to work. Very two different scenarios there. There
Yeah.
are people who maybe don't know that that's what they're doing, but everything revolves around work. Yes, I know that in your lifetime, you will spend more time working than you do having playtime, unless you are those super, super smart people where you've just invested in property and you do property management and you just get to live the life of taking in checks and getting to spend it. That is so
Period.
great. But unfortunately, that's not where I'm at. That's not where Jen's at, or most people. So with that being said, emphasize and focus on outside of work, trying to do hobbies, chasing your personal goals, whether that be, maybe you're going to the gym because it's good for your mental health. Like me, I love cooking. At the end of the day, unwinding and cooking myself a really good meal is such a nice treat for me. Making sure that I'm getting enough sleep. And like Jen said, I'm spending time on those relationships and pouring into them and making sure that that quality time quota, in my opinion, is hit, because I want to make sure that the people in my life feel loved. And one thing with my personality is I love being there for my friends and for my family. When they're going through tough times, I can't do that if I'm completely stressed out with work. I've realized that in the last couple of weeks that I've had a very poor work-life balance, and it's like physically taking a toll on me. I've had to tell Jen multiple times, like, hey, I know we had plans tonight, but I physically can't.
She hates me, actually. So I'm kidding.
I know, but I feel so bad about it.
Don't.
I know I don't. I shouldn't. But the thing is, it's just interesting how if you don't take the time, your body will take time for you. We talked about this in our burnout episode. Sometimes you will get so physically worn down that you have no choice but to lay around.
Right.
Which is okay. It's like, if that happens, take the time, but let's try and find a better way to not get to that like dire moment.
Yeah.
This is where I want you guys to ask yourself, and take a break in this episode, pause it if you want to, even talk to yourself. I feel like that helps me a lot. I can talk myself through a lot of situations. I've gotten comfortable talking with myself since having moved here alone and living alone and spending a lot of time by myself.
Yeah.
What is your purpose? Like, what would you say your purpose in this life is? For me, one day, I hope that I have a family. That is my main purpose. I think everything else is just going to accent that and to support that. And it's not saying that I don't want to have a great career or have something for myself. It's not that I don't want to do other things, but that's what I want. That's my goal. Now my next question is, what are you prioritizing? Is it going to help you reach that goal? So a few things to break that down. You need to be uncomfortably honest with yourself and ask yourself why, if you feel like something's not clicking there. Like, like Jen even said, if it's your job, that's fine. Like, we're not saying that people who are very career focused, who want to exceed in their professional career and that is their life goal, that's cool.
Right. There's nothing against that.
No, because we wouldn't have incredible people in different industries. Like, think about celebrities and actors, like method actors, where you immerse yourself in your work and you are the best at your craft. And that is what makes them happy. Great. But for people like me, and I think Jen would agree, that we are not people that just want to work.
Right. No thanks.
So why are we so scared to admit that we're unhappy with where we're at with our work-life balance? That's okay. It's okay to admit that you're not in the place that you want to be in. And that's where that pivotal moment comes in. Tell yourself something needs to change, because that's where positive change can happen. That's
Absolutely.
where things start to move, and your focus will shift on the proper things, because you're actually starting to focus your energy on something that you want it to be focused on.
This goes back to our episode last week too on mental health, which if you haven't listened, go back and listen.
It's such a good episode. It's our best one.
I would say so too.
Mm-hmm.
We're two chatty Cathys, but in a good way.
But it's so true, because mental health is such a big topic,
and
it stems into everything.
Right.
One thing that I always preach, I feel like when Jen interned with us, I went on rampages about this, and maybe not like aggressive ones, but I get worked up.
Yeah.
I don't believe in a 40-hour work week.
Oh my God.
I said it.
Wow.
Controversy has arrived. She's walked into the building.
Yep.
I think 40-hour work weeks I think it's the devil's work. It is the worst thing that you could have done to a human being, saying that you need to be here Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, 8 to 5, typically with an hour-long lunch. That's all you get. And the worst part on top of that is that you're expected to actively work those 8 hours, the 4 before lunch and the 4 after. How is that possible? You're telling me that federally speaking, we get a 10-minute break every 2 hours? That's it?
It's wild.
That's not okay. It's not fair. Whoever isn't asking more questions about that, what are we doing here? This is crazy.
And I feel like our bodies are just not meant to handle that, especially our minds. Like, you can sit and do whatever task you want for however long your body wants, okay? But mentally speaking, it is so hard to just sit there and focus, especially when you've got so many other things going on at home.
Yeah.
Like, Oh God.
Exactly. The work week that's designed for us right now does not allow us to have enough time to tackle the things outside of work. So it's going to leak into your work day.
Right.
2 days on the weekend. Let's say that you get done with work at 5. Okay. That's kind of like you have maybe 3-4 hours before everything closes.
Yeah.
So if you're going to run errands, if you're going to spend time with your children, take them to sports, spend time with your significant other during the work week, you have 4 hours before you ideally would like to start winding down and get into bed. Unless you're a night owl, that's fine. But we're kind of talking, when I refer to these things, I'm talking about a very healthy work-life balance, like what you're trying to go for. And I'm thinking about sleep. You technically, for me, would want to be in bed by 9:30, 10 p.m. so I can wind down with some TV, maybe scroll my phone a little bit, and then I can turn the TV off by like 11:30 and still get 6 to 7 hours of sleep, ideally. I just find it incredibly irritating that we've been told that you need to work 5 days a week. And even being an entrepreneur and a small business owner and kind of stepping outside of like that typical work week mentality, we're kind of scrutinized. We're almost like I feel like it's a lot of jealousy because they can't do that. And I understand that because I've felt that way. But don't be jealous because now I just have more to balance. Like I don't have set hours. So now I need to restrict myself, which is I'm the first person to let me down. For sure.
It's a good way of putting that.
I just want to say that I love that a lot of countries in Europe are taking on the 4-day work week, the 3-day weekend. Give them some extra time to enhance their life outside of the office, because there's really nothing that the United States or America is doing for their workforce within that 5-day work period that is making it attractive to be happy about that.
Right.
There's nothing.
And I feel like especially in those places where they do take a day away or whatever the amount of time is, that's only benefiting the workforce because it's allowing them to regroup a little bit more and find that extra energy to go back to work and get shit done. Be productive.
There is this wonderful gal on Instagram. I first started watching her videos because her and this other guy were on fake calls, and they would ask each other, like, how do you respectively say this in a professional setting? You know, like, leave me alone, I don't want to answer your email, that kind of a thing. And then, then she would have a really poised response as to how to say that in a work setting. But she also kind of does these skits where she's pretending to be, her own boss, and she's going back and forth. And the boss is like, well, when it comes time for promotions and you're not putting in extra time, you're probably going to be overlooked. And she's like, oh, because I'm not going, like, I clock in at 9, I clock out at 5. Now I'm going to be skipped over for promotions because there are other people who can't do the amount that they're required to do inside of the hours that they were given.
Right.
So it's like, because I, again, time manage well, you're going to punish me because I'm not working overtime. Like, what are we actually rewarding here?
Right. I exactly.
It's so
get what
twisted.
you're putting down.
It does not make any sense. So you're telling me that the person who doesn't set good work-life boundaries is going to get a promotion over me when I'm here not stepping over that 5 p.m. because I'm a strong person. I'm getting my work done. Like, her boss, I'm doing air quotes here.
Yeah.
She was talking to herself. Her boss was basically... like she was twisting the narrative. She wasn't and she wasn't saying that she wasn't doing her job well. She just wanted more. And that's why it's frustrating too. It's like, oh, okay, so you time managed really well. Great. I'm going to reward you with more work. I'm going to reward you with other people's work because they're not getting it done on time. They're actually taking more time. So now I'm going to give it to you because you're done early.
Yeah.
Come on, people. We got to start standing up for ourselves.
No kidding.
And I feel very passionate about that in your workplace. Like, it seems really hard. If you're afraid that you're going to get fired because you're standing up for yourself and you're like, this is a really bad work-life balance for me and I feel like I'm not being treated fairly here and it's making it really difficult for me to enjoy life outside of the office, and you feel like that's going to be an ultimatum, that's not a good fit.
No, it's time to rethink that situation.
Let them fire you. Get paid unemployment, recoup, put your ducks in a row, and get back out there and find something that's better. Okay?
Word.
You won't know if there's something better unless you don't look for it.
Very true.
The last thing that I kind of want to touch on is, and I told Jen this before, I'm going to bite myself in the ass here a little bit because I'm going to be a little bit of a hypocrite because I do both of these. Okay. So I just want to get that disclaimer out there. We talked about hobbies earlier.
Yes, ma'am.
And things that we find personally fulfilling. You don't have to turn those into a money-making business.
You don't?
You would be surprised based on my personal actions, but no, you do not need to. In college, I bounced around a lot of different departments and majors because I couldn't figure out what I wanted. I don't want to sound arrogant, but I'm the type of person that if I teach myself to do something, I will excel at any type of job.
Yeah.
Outside of math, outside of being a doctor, outside of being a lawyer.
Outside of STEM.
Yeah, outside of STEM, pretty much. I'm not a woman in STEM. I am a woman in... I'm a woman.
Put that on a motherfucking t-shirt. I'm a woman.
I'm a woman. I'm just a
It's a
girl. I'm just a girl.
I'm just a girl.
Ooh.
That's not the song. I was thinking.
We're in a specific cadence. It's the...
You know- But you know the song that's like, I'm like a bird.
Oh,
Yeah.
Nelly Furtado.
Sure.
She's a great gal.
Slay Queen.
Slay queen.
Nelly, if you're listening.
She is not.
She could be.
No. So going back to that, your hobbies can stay hobbies because sometimes when you cross the boundary, you lose the passion for it. Sometimes passion projects are meant to be good. Just because you're good at something does not mean that you need to be good at it and then make money from it.
Right.
Here's my example. So in college, I did wedding makeup on the side, and I, over the weekend, kind of had like a resurgence of wanting to maybe start that up again. And when I quit in the first place, I was burnt out. I was juggling too many things. I knew that I loved it, but because my approach to it and my schedule wasn't highlighting it as a positive, it was a negative.
Right.
I felt strapped. Different scenario now too, because I was not able to afford, I was using my personal makeup and just cleaning it to the best of my ability. So that way I was able to use it on clients, but I wasn't able to have separate tools, which is necessary for a successful business.
Right.
Like I didn't have an LLC. It was just a side hustle. However, that should have remained a hobby. I should have just stuck to it myself. But with that being said, sometimes hobbies can be the perfect solution to a work alternative. Let's say that you're in corporate America. I know plenty of people on Instagram and on TikTok who have found joy again working because they get to do what they love.
Yeah.
Making jewelry, being a beauty influencer, going into fitness, doing the things that they love. They have been able to find maximum potential and make more money than they've ever been able to make in a corporate position because they're able to pour every ounce of love into it because they want to.
That's so cool.
It is so cool. So again, it's like, don't do it, but do it. Like it's up to your discretion on if it's a good choice, but that's kind of my spiel on that. I really want everybody to be as happy as possible. That is, if I could wish anything in life, I'm not going to say something as cheesy as world peace because I just don't think that that's realistic, at least anytime soon. However, individually, everybody on earth, I hope that everybody finds their true purpose.
I love that.
And
that's such a
then-
good message.
And then from that, everybody just gets to enjoy their relationships. I was just telling Jen that I watched a movie the other day called Into the Wild. And at the end, he writes in his journal that happiness is only real when shared. And I think that's a beautiful message. Making connections with people, being able to experience and explore new things outside of work, I think is where the magic is in life.
I would agree completely.
So put that first. It's going to be really difficult because we've been programmed to think otherwise, but try and break the sound barrier a little bit, go out of the norm, and I think you'd be surprised at the outcome and the positive benefits that you see in your life.
I would agree. And I think it's definitely something that is probably going to cause a little bit of discomfort, especially because we have that deep rooted, I need to work. I got to do my job constantly. I got to constantly overperform and be the best. But I think it's going to take a little bit of being uncomfortable.
But why is just performing, why can't performing be performing?
I
You're
agree.
doing it. you're doing it. Why do you have to overperform?
Right.
You're not underperforming. You're doing it. You're
Yeah.
doing just fine. I'm glad that you said that. That just kind of like put a light bulb off in my head where you're doing enough. Whatever you're doing right now, whoever you are, you're doing enough. It is okay. Take a step back. Also, work-life balance, give yourself kudos for all the things that I would even like mark it down in your calendar once a month or like once every couple of weeks. Or if you're working on big projects, at the end of that project, when you have that deadline done, if it's easier to put a couple of hours or maybe like take a whole day off for yourself and be like, put in there, give self credit for hard work.
Yeah. I love that.
You just killed that entire presentation that you've been dreading and working your ass off for a month and a half. You finished it. It went so smooth. It's so good. Give yourself some credit. Give yourself a pat on the back. It's cool. It is cool to be confident in the work that you do and feel that you are enough. Yes, always work on yourself, but you're not a fixer-upper.
Right.
At some point, you in your entirety are good enough.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
End of spiel. Jen, closing remarks.
My closing remark is everything that we have been saying already. You got to find your purpose. Your one sole purpose, and that's bullshit. You don't have one sole purpose.
No.
But your one purpose that the world is telling you to do is not working, okay? Obviously, get a job, work, if that's what makes you happy. You got to make money and live, right? But find something that makes you happy, truly. And like what Alex was just saying, you don't necessarily have to make your career out of it, but also, if that's something you want to do, fucking do it. I love that for you. Find what makes you happy. Go do things that you love people that you love. Live, laugh, love.
Live, laugh,
Eat,
love.
pray, love.
Let's eat, pray, love. Yeah, make sure you're eating, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, eat some good good shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Signing off.
Signing off.
This is Jen and Alex closing out.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Well, okay, hold on. Can I just say something?
Yeah.
Should we say good night because this gets released at 10 a.m. every Friday?
Okay, but what if they're listening to it at night? Good night, good morning, good afternoon, whenever you're listening.
Good.
Bye.